The original floor was set back in July of 2022, and I said back then that my concern is that the game's floor dips below that, below the 13,000 concurrent. And you also have heard me say multiple times, concurrency really isn't the true measure of the game's success or failure, but it is a measure that we can point to and look to as a way of measuring the overall trend of the game. And I think trends are the real key word here. They're the important factor, because this video isn't me becoming a doomer or a gloomer by any stretch of the imagination. So hopefully that's not what you're getting from this video in your feed today, but it's to be honest with you guys, to have that honest conversation as to why this is happening, what I feel the devs could do about it to help improve those numbers and help them go back up. And go back up they will. So hello everyone and welcome to the channel. My name's Brian. If you happen to be new around here, if you're a returning subscriber, you're already in the place for New World news, guides, opinions, and these kind of discussion breakout videos about the state and the health of the game. There's so much that we can talk about, but I want to focus this video on why we're seeing the numbers that we're seeing, the fact that these did dip below the original floor set last year, and is this a sign of more dips to come in the future, and what you can do to kind of essentially set the right expectation, also, and to help provide that feedback to the developers, because I feel the developers are truly listening. So I will relitigate some of my feedback that I provided for those of you who have not heard it, not seen it, but that will be a little bit later in this video. Now, let's talk about why we're seeing what we're seeing. We always knew June was going to be a hard month. One of the things that people use these numbers is they try to dunk on them, not really truly understanding them. Concurrency is a factor of who is obviously live at that time in that given moment. It doesn't represent the true player numbers. To find that out, the industry standard is a 7 to 11 multiplier. You can also do this and figure this out from the hours of the game played. Roughly speaking, New World ends up running around 150,000 to 250,000 right now in its lull, and it can jump up into the millions when you have big content updates. And we just got a recent season 1 content schedule update, which did improve the numbers a little bit. We saw a nice little dip. We saw an increase of around 2,000 players, or a 13% increase in the concurrency for that period of time, which it has since dipped down into the month of June, which for you guys, if you haven't heard, I've been playing Diablo. I've been playing Blue Protocol for the Japanese version. I've also been playing Final Fantasy 16. June was always going to be a hard month. And while New World isn't dropped, I didn't quit New World, it just became lower on the priority list because it's healthy for us to play other games. And as a dad, as somebody who is a software engineer who goes to work, I think that's really important, because I do tend to see the full-timers out there tend to kind of, when they tie their entire income to making content around a specific game, that's a recipe for drama. That's a recipe for that kind of frustration. And this is the games. We're talking about games. These are supposed to be fun. But I do see a lot of those bandwagon, roving bandwagon fans out there who like to just hate on games as a part of the fun, I guess, that they have online. So if you're one of them, I guess cheers to you. Hopefully you're having fun, whatever you're doing. Anyhow, now on that note, obviously June with the games isn't big, but it isn't just that other games are coming out. New World is in a lull because really season 1 didn't deliver like an insane amount of content. And that's not to say that every season has to deliver an insane amount of content. It's to say that the systems that they have in place right now are in massive need of refinement. One of those systems that we know is coming, a lot of these things are actually on the roadmap, so there is hope, there is things to be excited about, but cross-world play, cross-world OPR to start, and then eventually additional cross-world features like expeditions and so much more. It's really unfortunate that those features will not be in, or all those features will not be in for the expansion. At least cross-world OPR will be, but that's level 60 content. You're going to have people come back for the expansion who aren't level 60, and it would be really good for them to be able to jump in quickly and participate in the 3v3 arena, or especially the new map and all these different kind of activities. But unfortunately, that is the way it is. That's the expectation they set. If it did come sooner, I wouldn't complain, as long as it's stable. But one of the key aspects, one of the things that hurts New World over and over a longer period of time is how its servers are structured and its inability to guest. And that's, I think, one of the things that would be really critical for this game going forward, is the ability for you to guest on another server, so that way you didn't have to go through the rigmarole of navigating and moving, etc. Sometimes you just want to play, and when New World is popular, when it's hot, when the numbers are going up, obviously servers scale and there's so much more excitement, but eventually you run into the problem that you don't want to wait in queue, and so maybe you move servers, and so you end up having that whole drama that doesn't need to happen, especially in 2023. And the games that are being released and prepared to be released, the systems kind of just handle that in the back end. But that also then applies to some of the things we're talking about with influence, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. But beyond Season 2, though, we do know Season 3 is coming with an expansion, but we do know that's unfortunately going to take time. There's still lots of cool stuff to look forward to, but it's hard to be excited for a mystery, especially when the overall mood online tends to be negative. Oh, is this game, etc. The game's fun. The game is good. It just needs to get better, and better is something a function of time. And I believe that they're going to continue to do that because also the Lord of the Rings is being built by this team, by this company, by this engine. So New World will dramatically benefit from that level of investment, and the Lord of the Rings will also dramatically benefit from the investment that New World has in store. A lot of people write off New World. They're just going to shut it down. You have a perfect situation. You have a perfect test case situation where you can find the flaws, you can fix the flaws, and so that when they come out with Lord of the Rings, ideally they've learned those lessons and Lord of the Rings doesn't repeat any of the same problems that we've seen in New World to date. So I think these two MMOs are beneficial to one another, and thus it would be foolishness to pull out of New World anytime soon. Now, for those who have not seen my content or just need a TLDR, when it comes to my feedback, a lot of my feedback matches to things that they've already said on the roadmap, so I tend not to bring that up. For example, mounts. We know mounts are coming. I'm very interested and excited about mounts. Transmog, etc. Same story. It's coming. I'm interested in it, but I don't need to relitigate those because those are on the roadmap. What I continue not seeing on the roadmap is the thing that I keep bringing up, and I'm going to keep bringing it up until until some point where I cannot no longer speak into a mic. And that's that I want to see the devs have that post-level XP progression. And what I mean by that is that we have aptitude levels for everything in the game except for your character and for your weapons. And adding in that kind of system keeps everything that the game does kind of relevant, but not necessarily efficient, not necessarily good. They introduced having XP provide you seasonal XP by getting 10,000 player XP gets you 25 seasonal. That's great, but there's no also visual way that that gets tracked. And having these two systems kind of start to become integrated would be, I think, a real key factor. I would love to see that kind of progression as I'm playing the game, because I don't know, I'm weird. I love filling up bars. This is the RPG player in me. Filling up bars would be more of what I want to see and do in this game, and so I would like to see that. Obviously, we know controller support's coming. I still think it's going to be vastly important, and if they can have that out for the expansion, that's going to be critical, because this is going to be another opportunity for people to try out the game. I do not know if the expansion will come to consoles, but we do know Lord of the Rings is also coming to consoles, and because of that, that I think is kind of a really good sign that we'll see New World come to consoles at some point, because again, you kind of have your first through the gate, right? in general, like, the first one through the gate usually gets shot, but beyond that aspect, they can go and bring New World to consoles. They can really get that ecosystem, that understanding of how those all flow and work together, so that for their future projects, those are all ready to go, and we all benefit by having a bigger player base, and obviously that is built off of controller support. So we do know it's coming. I think it's going to be important to see. Now, when it comes down to like the bigger things, I really feel like there needs to be, better kind of PvP incentives and systems. And they talk about the reintroduction of the new influence grind. I do think though, and I know a lot of PvP players who are diehard PvP only disagree with that, but I do feel like PvE should play a role in the influence gain. I do think PvP should be 10 to 1, 100 to 1, hell, 1,000 to 1. Whatever that ratio is what I think would be beneficial to us as players, but having PvE have an element that is applied to influence would be really interesting to see. Doing dungeons, running different quests, all of these little things, just adding up a little bit to the overall system. Now, the best system that I've seen from my personal preference is Final Fantasy XI's system of influence. The influence system was geared at a week. So they would say you would have a week, and everything that happens within a zone by your faction gets you points. Now, they weren't a PvP game. New World, I would say keep the PvP focus. That's a really good way of keeping players engaged. But imagine that the things you do score points for your faction. At the end of the week, there ends up being kind of a bigger kind of thing. And this all applies to wars as well, where wars add a ton of metric points for your faction, but ultimately they don't then decide the winner. And I think that would get more people jumping into wars more freely, and I think that is a system that could be redone. You don't have to agree with me. It's not like I'm sitting here saying this is the only way, but regardless, having those kind of things happen on this weekly thing ends up kind of giving a little bit more, asynchronous multiplayer to the vast majority of people, and thus allows for more recruiting to happen. We know a lot of this is going to be changing with the companies. We know a lot of changes on the way, but we still have this mystery of what the expansion is, and they need to start, unfortunately, communicating that here sometime in early, I would say, season 2. Once they start talking about the expansion, I think that's where we're going to start getting people hyped, thinking about checking out the game again, wondering what's all changed and coming back. That leads into the fall, assuming they don't have a delay, but this is the New World team. We do tend to see a little bit of delays here and there. It happens. It's unfortunate. It's not fun, but I'd rather have them delay than have an introduction of a game-breaking bug. You can let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Now, those are kind of my thoughts about where we're at for the state of the game. I'm loving this game. I still love this game. I want this game. I want the narrative to change into a more, I guess, reasonable discussion. But I mean, when we're talking about the internet, we're talking about clout, it becomes a very difficult thing to have because, people in a way treat video game discussion more in terms of you get the team aspect. We see a lot of this with the console wars out there. You get that aspect, but then you get people who take it to the next level, and it becomes almost a religion to them, where they're just absolutely blinded by logic. Team A, my team does this and it's acceptable, but if your team does it, you're a piece of trash. Kind of aspect. So that's just what I wanted to give you guys for the state of the game. Here we are as we get ready to go into July, into this, and I will hopefully be having some announcements about the upcoming Tournament Fishing Classic, raising money for St. Jude's, that we'll be doing sometime this summer. I just need to kind of figure out with my wife and the date and what we're going to do in terms of all of it. So keep it locked here to the channel. Hopefully I'll have that announcement out for you guys here soon. And thanks so much for being here. Love you faces, and I'll see you in the next one. But until then, take care.